The USS Indianapolis cleared the Golden Gate at 0800 on July 16, 1945, her hull number CA-35 freshly repainted in measure 22 haze gray, the stars and stripes snapping from the jackstaff against a fog bank that smelled of eucalyptus and bunker oil. In the armored bomb bay below the forward 8-inch turret, welded shut with a marine padlock, sat two lead pigs stamped U-235, each 18 inches long and weighing 220 pounds, plus a pine crate the size of a footlocker containing the bomb's polonium-beryllium initiator and 64 pounds of cordite H high explosive. A single Geiger counter, borrowed from Los Alamos, ticked lazily in the corner. Captain Charles Butler McVay three-paced the open bridge in polished corfums, a cup of coffee cooling in his hand. At 34 knots, flank speed on 4 screws, the cruiser left a wake visible from the Presidio. Below, the crew broke into song, California, Here I Come, sung off-key by 400 men who had no idea they were carrying the war's final punctuation mark. The passage to Tinian was a blur of heat and drills. Engineers in the fire rooms shoveled 2,400 pounds of oil per hour into the burners. Temperatures hit 135 degrees Fahrenheit beside the boilers. Seaman First Class Lyman P. L.P. Hamblin, 19, from Missouri, lost 10 pounds in sweat alone. On the mess decks, cooks served 1,200 pounds of potatoes daily, peeled by hand because the electric peeler had been removed to make room for the uranium shielding. At night the ship ran blacked out. The only light came from the red glow of the binnacle and the occasional flare of a cigarette passed between lookouts. On July 19, a pod of porpoises raced the bow for 20 minutes, leaping through the phosphorescence like silver torpedoes. Someone started a pool on whether they'd reach Tinian in under 74 hours. The winner bought beers in Guam that never came. Tinian's north field appeared at 0545 on July 26. A coral runway still scarred from the 509th Composite Group's practice drops. Longshoremen in sweat-stained khakis stared as the uranium was lowered by crane into a deuce-and-a-half guarded by MPs with Thompsons. Colonel Paul Tibbets himself signed the receipt. 90 minutes after the hook splashed, Indy was outbound, her decks hosed down with seawater to erase any radioactive dust. At Guam, 119 replacements came aboard, mostly 17-year-old boots who had never fired a gun in anger. Private First Class Edgar Harrell, USMC, stepped over the brow clutching a cardboard box containing his mother's fruitcake and a dog-eared New Testament. He shook hands with gunner's mate 3rd Class Harold Bray, who offered a stick of juicy fruit and a warning, "Don't lean on the lifelines, Marine. The paint's still wet." Course 262, speed 17.2 knots, no zigzag ordered. The night of July 29 to 30 was inky black, the Milky Way a river of diamonds overhead. At 0004 on the 30th, lookouts on I-58's bridge spotted a silhouette 10,000 yards off the port bow. Commander Makitsura Hashimoto, 36, veteran of the Pearl Harbor midget sub program, knelt at the periscope in a sweat-soaked uniform. Target bears 085, speed 17, no escort, no zigzag. He fired 6 Type 95 torpedoes, each 23 feet long, 1,200 pounds of Shermo's explosive, at 40-second intervals. Broach marks appeared like white stitches across the sea. At 0005 the first struck just below the number 1 turret, detonating with a flash visible in Palau. The second hit amidships, rupturing the starboard longitudinal bulkhead and igniting 3,500 gallons of aviation gas in a fireball that rolled 200 feet into the air. The 1MC crackled, "This is the captain." General quarters. Fire in the forward engine room. All hands to abandoned stations. Steam lines screamed like banshees, the deck tilted 15 degrees in 30 seconds. Machinist's mate Lowell Dean Cox, waist-deep in flooding machinery spaces, pried at a jammed hatch with a Stilson wrench while scalding water boiled around his ankles. He freed 3 men before the bulkhead gave way. The last anyone saw of Cox was his hand reaching through the scuttle as the sea closed over it. On the boat deck, Seaman Second Class Woody James kicked off his boondockers, took 3 running steps, and dove as the port propeller, still turning at 120 revolutions per minute, churned the water into green fire. He surfaced coughing oil, rolled onto his back, and watched the stern rise until the rudder cleared the surface, a black cliff silhouetted against the explosion's orange glow. Depth charges in the after magazine cooked off with a hollow boom that lit the clouds like lightning. The ship foundered bow first at 0014, the stern whipping over in a complete somersault before sliding under. The suction pulled men down 50 feet, some surfaced inside air pockets in the upturned hull, only to drown when the pockets collapsed. The sea that received the survivors was 83.4 degrees Fahrenheit, viscosity thick with bunker sea that coated eyelashes and turned every breath into a cough of petroleum. Kapok life jackets, rated for 48 hours, absorbed oil and water until they dragged chins below the surface. The lucky ones found 4 motor whaleboats, 9 floater nets, or the jagged remains of 6 Carly floats. Most clung to 40mm ammunition cans, potato crates, or the ship's cork-insulated battle lanterns that bobbed like fireflies. Dawn revealed a carpet of heads stretching 3 miles in every direction, bobbing like black seeds on a dark field. The first shark arrived at 0558, an 8.5-foot Oceanic Whitetip with a white scar across its snout and a remora stuck to its belly. It circled a corpse face down in a kapok, nudged it, then bit. The body jackknifed, the scream carried for half a mile. Within 30 minutes the water teemed with fins, some slicing the surface like knives, others ghosting below in pale silhouettes. Edgar Harrell's raft, actually a 10 by 12-foot platform of splintered teak decking, held 83 Marines at sunrise. They formed a square, boots touching boots, and took turns reciting Psalm 23. When a shark lunged, they stabbed with K-bar knives or beat the water with broken oars until the beast rolled belly up, stunned. Saltwater sores opened first on the neck where the kapok rubbed, then the groin, then everywhere the oil touched skin. Lips split like overripe figs, tongues turned to leather the color of mahogany. Night brought a chill that crept into marrow. Men shivered so violently their teeth chipped on the metal canteens they no longer had. Hallucinations arrived in Technicolor, a destroyer with ice-cold Coca-Cola in the scuppers, a Liberty ship serving hot turkey dinners with cranberry sauce, a neon sign blinking, Pearl Harbor, 50 miles. Saltwater psychosis set in fully on the second day. Radioman Adolfo Al Celso, 21, from New Mexico, began to drink seawater at 1800 on the 30th. By 0200 on the 31st he was singing in Spanish about his mother's tamales, stripping off his dungarees, and diving for the cooler water below. No one could stop him, the circle closed ranks and kept kicking. Sharks learned the rhythm, bump, circle, strike. They preferred the wounded, the slow, the loud. Survivors learned to stay quiet, to move only when necessary, to let the dead feed the living. By the third sunrise the ocean stank of blood, feces, and vomit. Skin sloughed off in translucent sheets, maggots hatched in open wounds within hours. The largest raft, now down to 32 souls, carried Captain McVay himself, rescued from the water with a compound fracture in his left femur and a broken collarbone. He floated on his back, life jacket torn, whispering course corrections to the stars. Nearby, Ensign Harlan Twible, 23, from Ohio, organized a human chain of 150 men, each gripping the belt of the next. They drifted south at 1.8 knots, carried by the north equatorial current. Twible rationed hope the way quartermasters rationed water, 1 story per hour, 1 joke per watch. When a man began to sink, the chain hauled him up, slapped his face, and reminded him of his mother's name. Rescue began with a broken antenna. At 11:22 on August 2, Lieutenant J.G. Wilbur C. Chuck Gwynn, USNR, flew a PV-1 Ventura on anti-sub patrol out of Peleliu. His starboard whip antenna snapped in turbulence. While wrestling a replacement, he banked low over a suspicious oil slick. At 800 feet he saw them, hundreds of white kapocks glinting in the sun like scattered pearls. He keyed the mic, cited 150 survivors 11-40 and 133-30E. Request immediate assistance. The message hit Peleliu's operations tower like a grenade. Within minutes every available aircraft was airborne. Lieutenant Adrian Marks, piloting PBY-5A Catalina, Dumbo, from VPB-23, heard the call and turned south without orders. He landed in 12-foot swells that cracked his hull plates, then taxied for 3 hours through shark-infested water, picking up 56 men, some with legs reduced to bone, others cradling shipmates already cold. Marks overloaded the plane until the wings dipped. He lashed extra bodies to the blister guns with parachute cord. The USS Cecil J. Doyle, DE 368, arrived at 23:30, her captain, Lieutenant Commander W. Graham Claytor Jr., illuminating the sea with a 24-inch carbon arc searchlight that turned night into noon. Sailors on deck wept openly as nets hauled up boys who weighed less than their sea bags. Pharmacists' mates worked in the scuppers, injecting morphine, cutting away necrotic flesh, whispering, "You're safe now, son." By 0400 on August 3 the last survivor, Seaman First Class George David Payne, 19, from Indiana, was pulled aboard the Doyle. He clutched a waterlogged diary in which he had written every hour, day 4. Still no ships. Sharks took Smitty at 0300. Tell Mom I tried. Total saved, 316. Total lost, 879 souls and 1 irreplaceable cruiser. Hospitals on Peleliu and Samar smelled of iodine and gangrene. Men woke screaming from dreams of teeth. The Navy kept the sinking classified for 2 weeks. When the story finally broke on August 15, it shared page 17 with Japan's surrender. Then came the court-martial. On December 3, 1945, Captain McVay faced a panel in the Washington Navy Yard. The charge, hazarding his ship by failing to zigzag. Evidence showed I-58 would have hit regardless. Evidence also showed 3 separate SOS messages from Indy were received and ignored, one by a drunk radioman in Leyte, one by a commander who thought it a Japanese trick, one filed and forgotten. Hashimoto testified via affidavit, the visibility was excellent. Zigzag would have changed nothing. Guilty anyway. McVay's career ended in a demotion of 100 numbers. He retired to Litchfield, Connecticut, tended roses, and answered every letter from survivors with the same line, "I should have zigzagged." For 55 years the survivors carried the weight. They met yearly in Indianapolis, growing fewer each reunion, trading stories over coffee and cigarettes. Then Hunter Scott, age 11, watched Jaws in 1996 and asked his father why Quint's speech sounded so real. A history fair project became a crusade, 150 interviews, 800 documents, a bill in Congress. On October 12, 2000, President Clinton signed Public Law 106-369 exonerating McVay and citing newly declassified intelligence. The Congressional Gold Medal followed in 2018. The wreck, discovered August 19, 2017, by Paul Allen's RV Petrel, lies in 5 pieces on a slope of volcanic sand, her bell still legible, her 8-inch guns aimed forever at the abyss. Today the canal in downtown Indianapolis reflects a curved granite wall etched with 1,196 names. Water trickles gently over the stone, carrying away the salt that never quite left their skin. Harold Bray, 98, visits every July 30. He stands in silence, hands clasped behind his back, listening for the scream of steam and the slap of fins. When school groups ask what it was like, he answers the same way: 4 days of hell, 5 minutes of heaven when the Doyle's light found us. The rest is just noise. Then he walks back to his car, starts the engine, and drives home through cornfields that smell nothing like diesel.